What happens when you have everything Sebastian Thorne had: the penthouses, the private jets, and $1 billion legacy. But 5 years ago, he lost the one thing that mattered: his wife Elena. He told himself it was her choice. Today, at a forgotten bistro, he's about to discover the price of his ambition. Because she's back. And she's not alone. He's about to see 3 small faces that share his own eyes. 3 secrets. 3 reasons to tear his perfect world apart. The world of Sebastian Thorne was built on glass steel and predictive algorithms. From his 80th floor penthouse overlooking Central Park, Manhattan, was not a city, but a data set. People were nodes, traffic was a flow chart, and life was a series of optimized outcomes. At 36, he was the CEO of Apex Aura, a data mining empire he had built from nothing sold for $3 billion, and then, in a move of cold genius, bought back for pennies on the dollar during a manufactured panic. He was ruthless, respected, and utterly, profoundly empty. His fiancée, Isabel Sterling, daughter of the Sterling half of Sterling, Morris & Howe, his law firm was currently at Le Bernardin, finalizing the tasting menu for their wedding. It was a merger, not a marriage, and both parties understood the terms. Sebastian was supposed to be at a meeting with the board, but a rare, illogical impulse had seized him. His driver, idling the silent electric Rolls-Royce on 57th Street, had been instructed to wait. Sebastian Thorne was walking. The rain was a fine, cold mist beading on the shoulders of his $8,000 Loro Piana coat. He didn't know why, but his feet had carried him downtown to a neighborhood he hadn't visited in half a decade. He found himself standing outside the Olive Branch Bistro. It was a ghost. This was their place, his and Eleanor's. Before Apex Aura, before the glass tower when they lived in a 4th-floor walk-up in Astoria, and their biggest dream was paying off their student loans. It was where he'd proposed, sliding a simple sapphire ring across the checkered tablecloth. The bistro was dated now. The green awning was faded, but it was still open. He felt a pull he couldn't name: nostalgia, or perhaps just a desire to feel something other than the sterile hum of his life. He pushed the door open. A small bell chimed. The place was nearly empty at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. A few stray tourists, an old man reading a newspaper. The air smelled of garlic, oregano, and old wood. He took a seat in a dark corner booth, the same booth they had always claimed. A waitress approached. He ordered an espresso, his eyes scanning the room, feeling the uncomfortable friction of the past rubbing against his curated present. And then the bell chimed again. A woman entered, shaking a cheap umbrella. She was wrestling with a stroller, a large, cumbersome triple stroller that barely fit through the door. Okay. Monster's shoes dry, she said, her voice strained but familiar. Sebastian's blood turned to ice. She unbuckled the first child, a little boy with a mop of unruly brown hair. Then a second boy, identical. Then a little girl with the same hair, but a stubborn frown. The woman turned to fold the stroller, and the light from the window hit her face. Her hair was longer, tied back in a messy bun. There were shadows under her eyes he'd never seen before, and she wore a simple parka from the North Face, not the designer labels he'd once draped her in. But it was her. It was Eleanor Sanchez, his ex-wife. Sebastian felt the air leave his lungs. It had been 5 years since she'd walked out, signing the divorce papers without a single demand, vanishing from his life so completely he'd wondered if she'd ever been real. He sat frozen, a statue, in a bespoke suit. Eleanor herded the 3 children into the booth, directly across from their backs to him. He couldn't see their faces, but he could hear them. "I want cheesy bread," demanded one of the boys. "No, I want cheesy bread first," said the other. "Be quiet, Liam Noah." Eleanor hushed her voice, weary. "We will all share the cheesy bread. "Chloe, honey, what do you want?" The little girl Chloe said nothing, just buried her face in Eleanor's coat. Sebastian watched. He was a man who processed gigabytes of data in a second, who saw market trends before they formed. He was doing the math. 5 years since the divorce. The children looked 4, maybe 4.5. He remembered their last fight, the screaming match, her packing a bag, him letting her go too proud and too stupid to stop her. It was 9 months before that. "Mummy, look." One of the boys, Liam, had wriggled out of the booth and was standing, looking around. He turned, and his eyes met Sebastian's. It was not a meeting of strangers. It was a reflection. The boy had his hair, his father's hair. But his eyes, they were the exact peculiar shade of green-flecked hazel as Sebastian's own. It was the Thorne family crest stamped onto a 4-year-old face. Sebastian stood up. The chair scraped loudly on the wooden floor. Elena, sensing the shift in the room, turned. Their eyes locked. For Elena, it was like seeing a phantom. The man who had shattered her heart was standing 10 feet away, looking not like the loving man she'd married, but like the cold billionaire he had become. Panic bright and septic flooded her veins. "Elena." Sebastian's voice was a raw whisper. She grabbed Liam's arm, yanking him back into the booth. "Kids were leaving. But the cheesy bread," Noah wailed. "Now!" She fumbled with the stroller, her hands shaking so violently she couldn't unlatch it. The children began to cry, sensing her terror. Sebastian crossed the distance in 3 strides. He stood over her table, a giant casting a shadow. "Elena," he said again, his voice harder. "Leave us alone, Sebastian," she hissed, not looking at him. "Who are they? They're my children. It's none of your business." He crouched down, forcing himself into the children's eyeline. They stared at him, tears streaming down their identical faces. Liam, the brave one, pointed a finger. "You look like my picture," he said, his voice a small, clear bell. "What?" Sebastian's head snapped to Elena. "He means a picture in a book, a storybook," Elena said, her voice cracking. "Let's go, kids." She finally got the stroller open and began shoving them in, buckling them with frantic, clumsy fingers. "They're mine," Sebastian stated. It wasn't a question. He looked at the girl, Chloe. She had his jawline, the stubborn set of his chin. "My God, they are, all 3 of them. They're mine, aren't they?" Elena didn't answer. She rammed the stroller toward the door, pushing it open into the rain. Sebastian followed, grabbing her arm on the sidewalk. "You lied to me!" He roared, the sound lost in the rush of a passing bus. "Let go of me!" she screamed, trying to shield the stroller. "You had my children. You kept my children from me for 4 years. They are my children." She cried, her face wet with rain and tears. "You made your choice 5 years ago, Sebastian. You chose your company. You chose her. You didn't want a family. You told me so yourself." She wrenched her arm free and ran, pushing the heavy stroller down the slick pavement, disappearing around the corner, leaving Sebastian Thorne standing in the rain, his billion-dollar world shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. Sebastian didn't remember the drive back to his penthouse. He moved on autopilot, his mind a vortex of green eyes and checkered tablecloths. He bypassed the private elevator, striding through the main lobby of the Eiffel Tower, his knuckles white, his Tom Ford suit soaked. The doorman, accustomed to his boss's glacial calm, visibly flinched. He slammed into his apartment, the heavy oak door booming shut. The penthouse was silent, a mausoleum of Italian marble and beige furniture. "Isabel," he called. No answer. She was still at the tasting. He went to the floor-to-ceiling window and stared down at the city that had until an hour ago belonged to him. Now he felt like he owned nothing. Triplets. He had children, not one but 3. Sons. A daughter. He replayed the scene. The boy, Liam. You look like my picture. The lie, Elena's panicked, clumsy lie, a storybook. And her final words screamed in the rain. You didn't want a family. You told me so yourself. He staggered to his bar, a minimalist slab of black granite, and poured a heavy glass of the Macallan 18. He drank it like water. He flashed back to that last fight. It wasn't one fight. It was a war of attrition. He was in the middle of the Apex Aura acquisition. He was sleeping at the office, living on caffeine and adrenaline. Elena had been needy, clingy. She kept talking about their future, about slowing down. The flashback. They were in their old apartment, the one in Astoria. He was packing a bag for a flight to Singapore. I just don't see you anymore, Seb, she'd said, standing in the bedroom doorway, twisting her wedding band. Elena, this is the deal of a lifetime. This sets us up. This is for us. Is it, or is it for you? I feel like I'm married to a ghost. This is what success looks like. He'd snapped, zipping the bag. It's temporary. It's been temporary for 2 years. I want a life, Sebastian. Maybe it's time we talked about a family. He had frozen. A family. A child. A distraction. A screaming, messy, inefficient drain on his time and resources. He was 31. He was on the verge of becoming a billionaire. He turned to her, his face a mask of cold ambition. A child. Are you insane? A child is the last thing I need right now. It would be the end of everything I've worked for. We can talk about that in 10 years, maybe. The light in her eyes had died. It was a physical thing, like a switch being thrown. She hadn't said another word. She'd just nodded, turned, and walked out of the room. 2 weeks later, while he was in Singapore, she'd sent an email. She was leaving him. The affair was the final straw. By the time he got back, her closets were empty and divorce papers were on his desk. The affair. He'd forgotten about that. In his mind, the breakup was about his workaholism, but she had accused him of cheating. An anonymous email, she'd said. Photos of him with a female colleague in Singapore. He'd denied it, of course. It was nonsense. The photos were innocent, a team dinner. But she hadn't believed him. Now sitting in his penthouse, the glass empty, he saw it all with horrifying clarity. She'd accused him. He'd dismissed her. She'd left. And she had been pregnant. Already pregnant. She must have found out after that fight. After he'd told her a child would ruin his life. He paced the room, a caged lion. She thought I'd make her get rid of it. He whispered to the empty room. She thought, my God. The rage returned colder this time. She robbed me. She stole 5 years of their lives from me. He picked up his phone. He didn't call Isabel. He didn't call his mother. He called the one person he trusted to be as ruthless as he was. Clayton, he said, when the lawyer answered. Mr. Thorne, I wasn't expecting your call. Clayton Morris, senior partner at Sterling Morris and Howe. Forget the board meeting. I have a new priority. I need you to find my ex-wife, Elena Sanchez, and I need you to draft custody papers. Full custody. There was a stunned silence on the other end. Pardon, your ex-wife. She has children, Clayton. My children. Triplets. She's been hiding them for 4 years. Another pause. Mr. Thorne, Sebastian, this is a delicate situation. I don't do delicate, Clayton. I want my children. I want a court-ordered paternity test by the end of the week, and I want a team of private investigators on her. I want to know where she eats, where she sleeps, who she talks to. I want to know everything. Of course, Sebastian. But this will get messy. The press... "I don't care about the press," Sebastian roared. "I want my children. Use the full resources of the firm. And Clayton, find out where she lives. Tonight." He hung up. He looked at his reflection in the dark window. The cold-controlled billionaire was gone. In his place was a man who had just discovered a kingdom only to find it barred against him. He was Sebastian Thorne. He did not lose. And he would not lose this. For Elena Sanchez, the last 5 years had been a brutal, beautiful blur. Discovering she was pregnant with triplets just days after walking out on Sebastian had been the universe's cruelest joke. She was alone, broke, and terrified. She'd moved to a small rent-controlled 2-bedroom in Astoria, a neighborhood Sebastian would never deign to visit. She'd pieced together a living as a freelance graphic designer, working late into the night, while her 3 babies slept her life, fueled by coffee and a fierce, protective love. Liam, Noah, and Chloe were her world. Liam was the bold one, the leader. Noah was the quiet, soulful observer, just like Sebastian used to be. And Chloe was pure fire, a tiny girl with her father's iron will. Yes, she kept a picture. It was from their college days, tucked into a copy of Goodnight Moon. A picture of a smiling, carefree Seb before the money. "That's just a man from a story, sweetie," she'd tell them. "He's far away." Now the man from the story was here, and he was a monster. The day after the bistro, the first letter arrived, hand-delivered by a curt messenger. It was from Sterling, Morris and Howe. The language was cold, brutal. Petition for paternity. Demand for DNA testing. Motion for emergency custody. Elena felt the floor drop out from under her. Full custody. He wasn't trying to meet them. He was trying to take them. The man who said a child would ruin his life now wanted to steal hers. She called a legal aid lawyer, a harassed but kind woman named Maria. "He's Sebastian Thorne," Elena whispered into the phone, huddled in her kitchen, while the kids watched Paw Patrol. Maria sighed. "Oh boy. Okay, Elena, did you hide them?" "He told me he didn't want them. He cheated on me. He was a different person. I did it to protect them." "I understand," Maria said gently. "But the court won't see it that way. A judge will see a father who was denied his rights. We can't fight the paternity test. It's his right. We have to let him do it. Our fight is to prove you are the primary caregiver, and that uprooting them would be detrimental." The test was a nightmare. Sebastian didn't come himself. He sent a clinical cold-faced man from a private lab, escorted by one of his lawyers. Elena held her crying children one by one as their cheeks were swabbed. She felt violated, invaded. 2 days later, Maria called her voice grave. "It's done, Elena. The results are back. 99.9999% probability of paternity. He's their father, and he's filed the motion for an immediate custody hearing." "What do I do?" Elena wept. "We fight. We show he's a stranger. We show he's only doing this out of pride, not love." But Sebastian's next move was not what she expected. He didn't wait for the hearing. He came alone. He was waiting outside her building when she returned from the park, pushing the now familiar triple stroller. He was leaning against a black Maybach, looking utterly alien on her graffiti-lined street. He wore a simple black turtleneck, and jeans, a deliberate costume of approachability that was more terrifying than his suit. "Elena, you're not supposed to be here," she said, her voice shaking. She positioned the stroller behind her. "We need to talk, not with lawyers." "We have nothing to talk about. You'll see me in court." "I saw the results," he said, his voice flat. "Congratulations. Now leave." He took a step closer. "I'm not here to fight, Elena. I'm here to understand." "Understand what? How to take my children." "Why you lied." His voice was raw now, the mask slipping. I've spent 72 hours thinking about nothing else. You thought I didn't want them. That's what you said. Because of that one stupid, awful thing I said. It wasn't one thing, it was everything. It was the 100-hour work weeks. It was the coldness. It was the fact you were a stranger to me. And you know what? Her voice rose, cracking with 5 years of suppressed fury. It was the cheating Sebastian. You were sleeping with your associate in Singapore. You think I'd let a man like that near my children? Sebastian stared at her, his face a mask of genuine, profound confusion. Cheating, Elena, I never cheated on you. Stop lying, she screamed. I saw the pictures, I got the emails, the ones you forgot to delete. What are you talking about? I never got any emails like that. No, I did, she choked out, anonymously. While you were in Singapore, pictures of you and that woman, Catherine, at a hotel bar, holding hands, her hand on your knee, an email detailing your entire week. Sebastian's mind, the data processor, finally clicked into place. It wasn't his email. It was an anonymous email to her. He had thought her accusation was a paranoid delusion, a misunderstanding of a team dinner. But this was different. Holding hands, hand on my knee. He repeated, his blood running cold. Elena, I swear on my life, that never happened. It was a group dinner. Catherine was there, so was her husband. I saw the pictures, Seb, they looked real. Then they were fake. He said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. Someone faked them. Someone sent them to you. Elena looked at him, her anger faltering, replaced by a terrible doubt. What? Who knew we were fighting? Who knew I was in Singapore, who would want to break us up? He thought of his rivals, Marcus Vance, his old partner. It was possible, but a deeper, colder suspicion began to form. Someone who knew him. Someone who knew her. Elena, he said, his voice urgent. Do you still have those emails? Those photos? I don't know, she stammered. I deleted everything. Maybe. On an old hard drive. In a box. Why? Because, Sebastian said, his eyes hardening to flint. You didn't lie to me. We were both lied to. You've been protecting your children from a man who doesn't exist, and I'm going to find out who did it. The custody hearing was postponed. Sebastian instructed Clayton Morris to file a motion to delay citing new evidence regarding the circumstances of the separation. Clayton was baffled, but Sebastian was resolute. He wasn't just fighting for his children, he was fighting for the truth. He didn't hire a simple PI. He retained Kroll Inc., the most expensive and thorough corporate investigations firm on the planet. He met with the lead investigator, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Zara Daniels, in a sterile conference room at his lawyer's office. Mr. Thorne, you believe your divorce was engineered? Zara asked, her pen poised over a notebook. I believe my ex-wife received falsified evidence of an affair leading directly to our separation. I need to know who sent it, and I need to know how they did it. Do you have the original files? My ex-wife is searching for them. An old hard drive. That would be best. Digital forensics can trace the metadata, but even without it we can start. Give me a list of everyone who knew you were in Singapore. Everyone who knew you were fighting with your wife. Everyone who had a motive. Sebastian gave her the list. 1. Marcus Vance, his former business partner whom Sebastian had forced out of Apex Aura. Motive revenge. 2. Catherine Davies, the woman from the photos. Motive unlikely. She was happily married. 3. Isabel Sterling, his fiancée. Motive none. He hadn't even known her then. 4. Genevieve Thorne, his mother. Zara's eyes lingered on the last name. Your mother. My mother, Sebastian said, his voice tight. She disapproved of my wife. She felt Elena was beneath our family. Understood, Mr. Thorne. We'll start with Mr. Vance. It's the cleanest motive. While Kroll worked, Sebastian's life split in two. By day, he was the CEO steering Apex Aura, and the fiancée placating Isabel. "Darling, you've been so distracted," Isabel said one evening, adjusting the strap of her couture gown as they prepared for a gala at the Met. "Is it this issue with the woman from Queens?" Isabel knew about Elena and the Triplets. Clayton had been forced to inform her as she was a partner at the firm. "It's being handled, Isabel," Sebastian said, tying his bow tie. "Good. Because the Sternlings and the Thorns, our union, it's important. This complication needs to be managed. A generous trust fund, a strict non-disclosure agreement. It's the only way. They are my children, Isabel, not a complication. Of course, darling, but they are not part of this world. They are her world. You need to keep it that way, for the good of the company, for the good of us." Sebastian looked at her. She was beautiful, intelligent, and as cold as the marble in his lobby. For the first time, he realized he was about to marry a woman exactly like his mother. His other life was in Astoria. He had convinced Elena to let him see them, not as a father, as an observer. He'd agreed to meet on neutral ground at a park. The first meeting was a catastrophe. He arrived in his Maybach. The driver opened the door. Sebastian stepped out wearing a $2,000 cashmere sweater. The triplets, who were busy making mud pies, just stared at him. "Hi," he said stiffly. Liam, the brave one, walked up and poked his shiny leather shoe. "You're the man from the picture." "Yes, I am." "Why are you so clean?" Liam asked. Sebastian didn't have an answer. He sat on a park bench, watching Elena play with them. He saw her smile, a real, unguarded smile, and it felt like a punch to the gut. This was the woman he'd married. Noah, the quiet one, approached him shyly. He didn't speak, just held up a broken toy truck. Sebastian, the man who could deconstruct a server mainframe in his head, stared blankly at the plastic toy. "It's broken." Noah nodded sadly. Sebastian took it. He examined the axle. A small piece of plastic had snapped. He looked at his driver. "Arthur, get my precision toolkit from the trunk." The driver returned with a small leather-bound kit. Sebastian sat on the park bench, and with the focus he usually reserved for a billion-dollar negotiation, he used a micro-driver and a tube of sealant to fix the toy truck. He handed it back to Noah. The boy's eyes went wide. He zoomed it on the bench, then looked at Sebastian and gave him a small, blinding smile. Sebastian's heart, which he'd long thought dormant, ached. A week later, Zara Daniels called him. "Mr. Thorne, we've hit a wall." "What do you mean?" "Marcus Vance has a rock-solid alibi. He was in a silent meditation retreat in Bali. For the entire month your wife received those emails. No phones, no internet. He's clean." "What about the hard drive? Elena found it." "We analyzed it. The original emails were sent through a series of encrypted bouncing proxies. Very sophisticated, designed to be untraceable. Whoever did this was a professional. So it's a dead end." "Not quite," Zara said. "The photos. Our digital forensics team analyzed the fakes. They are not fakes." "What? The photos are real, Mr. Thorne. You at the hotel bar, her with her hand on your knee. They were not doctored." Sebastian's mind reeled. "That's impossible. It never—" "Wait." He thought back. The dinner. It was a group, but Catherine had been emotional. Her husband was sick. She'd been drinking. She had touched his knee briefly, a gesture of gratitude as he offered his support. He hadn't thought anything of it. But who would photograph that It was a private table. Someone at the table, Zara said. Or someone who paid someone at the table. We're cross-referencing your expense reports from that trip. You paid for the dinner. Yes, you paid on your corporate card, but someone else paid for a round of drinks before you arrived. Mrs. Genevieve Thorne. Sebastian went silent. Your mother, Zara continued, was in Singapore at the same time. She wasn't on your itinerary. She stayed at the hotel across the street. She paid a waiter $5,000 to discreetly photograph your dinner. She created the evidence, and then she had it sent to your wife. The drive to Greenwich, Connecticut was a blur of white-hot rage. Sebastian sat in the back of the Maybach, his hands clenched so tightly his nails bit into his palms. The Kroll report was open on his tablet, a testament to a betrayal so profound it defied comprehension. His mother. Not a rival. Not an enemy. His own blood. The Thorne family estate was a 50-acre fortress of old money, a stone mansion that loomed over the Long Island Sound. He didn't wait for the driver to open his door. He was out of the car before it stopped striding past the bewildered staff and into the grand drawing room. Genevieve Thorne was arranging roses in a crystal vase. She was a woman of impeccable taste, and iron will dressed in a timeless Chanel skirt suit, her silver hair perfect. Sebastian, darling, what a surprise. You didn't tell me you were coming. Cut the act, mother. His voice, low and dangerous, made her pause. She turned one hand still on a white rose. I beg your pardon. Singapore, he said. 5 years ago, you paid a waiter $5,000. The color drained from her face. It was the only sign. Her posture remained perfect. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, he roared, slamming the tablet down on the mahogany table. The vase jumped. Kroll, they found everything. The hotel charges, the wire transfer to the waiter, the encrypted email service you hired to destroy my marriage. Genevieve put the rose down. She walked to the window, looking out over her perfect, manicured lawns. It was necessary, she said, her voice as cold as the glass. Necessary. He laughed, a dry, broken sound. Necessary to do what? To end my marriage. To save your future. She whirled on him, her mask of calm cracking to reveal the zealot beneath. That girl, Elena. She was a distraction. A little working-class anchor dragging you down. You were about to close the Apex Aura deal. You were on the precipice of greatness, and she was talking about babies. How did you know that? He whispered. I had your apartment bugged, of course. I had to know what she was filling your head with. She was going to trap you. She was going to ruin the Thorne legacy with her mediocrity. So yes, I intervened. I saw an opportunity in Singapore. I took a few innocent pictures, and I sent them to her. I knew she was emotional. I knew she'd break. I did it. For you, Sebastian. He stared at her, the scale of her sociopathy settling on him. You destroyed my life. For a business deal. I built your life, she shrieked. This family, this name, it means something. I would not let her dilute it. She was pregnant, Sebastian said, his voice dropping to a dead, icy calm. Genevieve froze. What? When she left, she was pregnant, with triplets. For the first time, Genevieve Thorne's composure shattered. Her hand flew to her throat. Triplets. You have 3 grandchildren, mother. 2 boys and a girl. They are 4.5 years old. I just found them. They've been living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, while their grandmother, who claims to care so much about the Thorne legacy, lives in this palace. I didn't know, she stammered, sinking into a chair. I swear, Sebastian, I never knew she was pregnant. Would it have mattered? He shot back. Would you have let them be born, or would you have handled that too? Don't you speak to me like that. They are still her children. They are my children. They are thorns. And you stole them from me. You stole me from them. You let me believe for 5 years that she left me, that I drove her away, all because you couldn't stand her bloodline. He walked to the door, his entire body shaking. Sebastian, wait. She pleaded, a note of real panic in her voice. We can fix this. We can bring them here. We can educate them. He stopped his back to her. You will never meet them, he said, the words cutting through the air. You will never speak to them. You will never be within 1,000 feet of my family. Sebastian, you can't. I've already spoken to Clayton. I'm restructuring the family trust. You're out. The children are in. Everything will go to them. You wanted the Thorn legacy, congratulations. You've just secured it for the 3 children of the woman you tried to destroy. You wouldn't dare. Watch me, he said. He walked out of the house, leaving his mother alone in her perfect room, her empire of lies having crumbled to dust. Sebastian drove straight to Astoria. He didn't call. He parked the Maybach a block away and walked the Kroll report, a lead weight in his briefcase. He needed her to see it. He needed her to know that the man she'd hated for 5 years was a phantom, a construct of his mother's design. He buzzed her apartment. Who is it? Her voice tinny over the intercom. It's me, Sebastian. Please, Elena. I have to show you something. It's the truth. There was a long pause. The buzzer sounded. He climbed the 4 flights of stairs, his heart pounding. The hallway smelled of cooking and damp. She opened the door just a crack, the security chain still on. The kids were behind her, peeking around her legs. What do you want? I found out who did it, he said, breathless. Who faked the affair? Her eyes widened. She fumbled with the chain and let him in. The apartment was small but bright. Children's artwork was taped to every wall. It was a home. Mummy, the clean man is back, Chloe announced, pointing at him. Go to your room, monsters, just for a minute. Mummy needs to talk to Sebastian. They protested, but she shooed them into their bedroom and shut the door. She turned to him, arms crossed. Well, he didn't speak. He just opened his briefcase, took out the bound report, and handed it to her. What is this? It's an investigation from Kroll. Read the summary. Page 4. She read. Her eyes scanned the page, then scanned it again, her brow furrowing in confusion. Genevieve, your mother. She was in Singapore. She paid a waiter to take those pictures. She had them sent to you. She admitted it. She had my old apartment bugged. She heard you tell me you wanted a family. She did it all. Eleanor sank onto the small sofa, the report slipping from her fingers. Oh my God. She didn't want a working-class anchor dragging me down. Sebastian said, his voice thick with self-loathing. Those were her words. Eleanor looked up, her eyes swimming with tears, but not of sadness, of rage. All this time, I hated you. I hated you. I thought you were this philandering monster. And he said, sitting in the small, kid-sized chair opposite her, I thought you were a paranoid, emotional woman who left me because I worked too much. She built a wall between us, and we both believed it was real. Elena started to cry, silent, angry tears. What she stole from us, what she stole from them. I know, he said softly. But Seb, she looked at him, her gaze sharp. That doesn't change everything. You were cold. You were obsessed. And you did say that horrible thing about not wanting children. I know, he said, his voice breaking. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life. I was an idiot, a 31-year-old child obsessed with a scoreboard. I was ambitious and arrogant and empty. I didn't know what mattered. You were right to leave that man. I wish you hadn't had to do it alone." She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in 5 years. She didn't see the billionaire. She saw the man from the park with the broken truck. "She's never going to meet them," he said. "No," Elena agreed, wiping her face. "Never. I've cut her off from the trust, from everything. It's all for them, Elena, everything I have. They don't need your money, Sebastian. They need a father." "I'm trying," he whispered. I'm really trying." He left her apartment hours later, after awkwardly reading Where the Wild Things Are to the Triplets, and drove to the one place he was dreading most. He found Isabel at the plaza, where she was inspecting the ballroom. "Sebastian," she said, kissing the air by his cheek. "You're late. The florist is having a meltdown." "Isabel, we need to talk." He led her to a quiet alcove. "I'm breaking the engagement," he said. No preamble, no softness. Isabel stared at him, her face impassive. "I see. Is this about the complication?" "It's about my children. They're not a complication. They're my life. A life I've missed for 4 years." "And what about our life? The merger, the dynasty we were building?" "That was a business deal, Isabel. You said it yourself. And I'm choosing a different path." "You're choosing her," she scoffed. "The little designer from Queens. You're trading a seat on the board of every important company in New York for what, finger painting and dirty diapers?" "Yes," he said. And for the first time, he smiled. A real smile. "I think I am. You'll regret this," she said, her voice a low hiss. "You're a fool, Sebastian Thorne. You're destroying yourself." "No," he said, turning to walk away. "I'm finally finding myself." He walked out of the plaza, leaving his old life behind. He was terrified. He was broke in a way. He'd just alienated his entire social and financial circle. And he was, for the first time in a decade, completely and utterly happy. The following months were a delicate, awkward, and profoundly clumsy ballet. Sebastian, acting on an impulse that was more paternal than strategic, rented the vacant 3-bedroom apartment directly above Eleanor's. "You can't just move in," she'd said, her arms crossed, standing on the worn linoleum of her kitchen. "I'm not," he stammered, feeling like a junior analyst in a pitch meeting he was about to lose. "It's for them. This place is... they're on top of each other. And you're working at this tiny table. They need a playroom. You need an office. And I can be close. If they need me. If you need me." Elena had stared at him for a long, hard minute, searching his face for the calculating CEO. But he was gone. All she saw was a man in a bespoke suit who looked desperately lost. She finally nodded. "1 floor," she said. "We'll try it. But Sebastian, you can't just buy your way in. You have to show up." He showed up, and he was terrible at it. His first attempt at fatherhood was to cater dinner. He had a private chef from Per Se prepare a 5-course nutritionally balanced meal. It was delivered in sleek, heated containers. Chloe poked the microgreens. "It's leaves." Liam smelled the seared scallops. "It's fishy." Noah, ever the diplomat, just whispered, "I'd like some mac and cheese, please." Sebastian was baffled. He'd just spent $700. Elena, suppressing a smile, pulled a box of Kraft from the pantry, and in 10 minutes had saved the evening. He tried to manage them. He scheduled synergistic playtime in his calendar. He arrived at Eleanor's door for it with a $4,000 leather briefcase and imported German educational blocks. Liam promptly emptied the briefcase of its useless stock reports, put it on its side, and declared it a secret fort. Chloe gleefully drew a "Keep Out" sign on the supple Italian leather with a purple crayon. Sebastian's eye twitched. He was about to reprimand them for improper use of materials, but Elena, watching from the doorway, caught his eye and shook her head a silent, "Let them be." He took a deep breath. He sat on the floor. He learned. He traded his suits for jeans and old university sweatshirts. He learned that showing up meant being there at 6 a.m. when they woke up his hair a mess to make pancakes. They were, as Liam noted, very flat and sad, which became a running joke. He learned that bath time was a full-contact sport that he would always lose. He learned how to do a pretty good braid for Chloe, one that only mostly fell out by noon. He was the clean man, then Seb, and then one night he was tucking Liam in. "Good night, Liam." "Night, Daddy." The word was so small, so casual, it almost didn't register. Sebastian stopped in the doorway, his back to his son, his hand gripping the frame. He felt his throat tighten. He didn't turn around. He just nodded, his eyes stinging. "Good night, son." He walked up to his own apartment, sat on his empty, perfect sofa, and cried for the first time since he was a boy. The wall between them, both literally and figuratively, began to dissolve. After the kids were asleep, Elena would often come upstairs, or he would go down. They'd sit in her small kitchen, a cheap bottle of wine between them. "I was so angry," she admitted one night, swirling the wine in her glass. "Every time one of them got sick, every time I couldn't pay a bill, every time I saw a father with his kids in the park. I hated you. I really, truly hated you. You had every right," he said, his voice quiet. "You were protecting them from a monster. A monster I was more than happy to be. You're not him anymore," she said, looking at him. The arrogant, cold polish was gone. He was just Seb. Tired, a little clumsy, but present. "I was so wrapped up in my own pain," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Seb. I robbed you of their first steps, their first words." "No," he said, his hand covering hers on the table. "Don't you ever say that. You did the only thing you could. You saved them. You saved them from me. The man I was. You kept them safe until I could be this." The shift was cemented on a perfect Saturday. They had taken the kids to Central Park, a real outing. Not a stiff observed visit, but a real family day. Sebastian was pushing Noah on the swings higher and higher, the boys' laughter echoing in the crisp autumn air. "Higher, Daddy, higher! You got it, champ!" Elena was on a bench with Liam and Chloe eating ice cream. She watched the two of them, the tall man and the small boy, and her heart felt dangerously full. This is it, she thought. We're going to be okay. Noah slowed down. "I'm dizzy," he said, his voice small. "Okay, buddy, that's enough," Sebastian said, stopping the swing. Noah hopped off. He staggered. "Whoa, easy there." Sebastian chuckled, reaching for his hand. But Noah didn't stop. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed a limp pile on the wood chips. "Noah!" Elena screamed, dropping the ice cream running. The world went silent for Sebastian. The laughter, the birds, the city hum, all gone. All he could see was his son's pale, still face. His CEO mode kicked in, but it was different now. It was a white-hot, focused terror. "Elena, call 911, now!" He commanded, his fingers already on Noah's neck, feeling for the faint, thready pulse. "He's breathing. He's shallow. Noah, can you hear me?" He scooped the boy up, his small body, terrifyingly light. "It's okay, son. Daddy's here. It's okay." He ran to the park entrance, Elena beside him, sobbing into the phone, the other two children screaming in confusion. The hours at New York Presbyterian were a sterile, fluorescent nightmare. Finally, a doctor entered. He looked tired and kind. Dr. Orris. "Mr. Thorne, Ms. Sanchez, we have Noah's blood panel back." He sat down. "Noah has aplastic anemia. It's a rare, serious condition. His bone marrow, it's failing. It's not producing enough new blood cells." Elena's hand flew to her mouth, a choked sound escaping. "He's been tired, hasn't he bruised easily?" Elena nodded, tears streaming down her face. I thought he was just a kid." "It's not your fault," Dr. Orris said gently. "The transfusions we're giving him now will keep him stable, but they are a temporary fix. What he needs, the only cure, is a bone marrow transplant." "Take mine," Sebastian and Eleanor said in the exact same instant. The doctor nodded. "Of course, we will test you both and his siblings immediately. But finding a perfect human leukocyte antigen, match an HLA match, is crucial." The next 48 hours were a descent into a special kind of hell. The first test was the siblings. The call came the next morning. "Neither Liam nor Chloe are a match." Elena let out a wail. Sebastian pulled her into a tight, desperate hug. Next was Elena. She sat in the phlebotomist's chair, her eyes squeezed shut, praying. The call came that afternoon. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Sanchez. You're not a match." The floor fell out. Sebastian was the last hope. The National Registry, the doctor had explained, was a long shot given Noah's mixed heritage. Sebastian sat by Noah's bed that night. The boy was translucent, his small hand lost in his father's. "Does it hurt, Daddy?" Noah whispered. Sebastian's throat closed. He shook his head. "No, buddy. It's just making you strong. Like Iron Man." "Okay," Noah whispered and fell asleep. The next morning, Dr. Aris's nurse found Sebastian in the cafeteria. "Mr. Thorne, the doctor would like to see you and Ms. Sanchez in his office. The results are in." The walk to that office was the longest of Sebastian's life. Elena met him at the door, her hand finding his, her fingers icy. They walked in and sat down. Dr. Aris looked at his chart. He looked up at them. He allowed himself a small, tired smile. "Mr. Thorne, you are a perfect match. 10 out of 10. Eleanor let out a raw, guttural sob of pure relief. She grabbed Sebastian's arm, burying her face in his shoulder. Sebastian just closed his eyes, his head falling forward. He looked at the doctor, his voice raw. "What's next? When can we do it? I'll do it right now." "The procedure to harvest is invasive," the doctor said. "It's done under general anesthesia. It will be painful, and it's not without risk." "I don't care," Sebastian said, his voice flat and hard as steel. "I don't care if you have to take it all. Just save my son." The night before the transplant, Sebastian was in his own hospital room, staring at the ceiling. Elena slipped in. "Are you scared?" she whispered. "Terrified," he admitted. "Not of this." He gestured to the IV port in his arm. What if it doesn't work? What if my body? What if I fail him?" "You won't," she said, her voice full of a new iron certainty. "When I was waiting for those results, I realized nothing I've ever built matters. Not Apex Aura, not the penthouses. It's just data. It's sterile. It's empty. Noah, this is real, and I nearly missed it all." "You were always their father, Seb," she said, her own tears falling as she took his hand. "You were just lost." "I was," he said, bringing her hand to his lips. "And you and Liam and Chloe and that little boy down the hall. You found me. You saved me." She leaned down and kissed him a soft, salty kiss of forgiveness and shared fear. "I'll see you when you wake up." The transplant was a success. Sebastian woke up in a deep grey fog of pain, his lower back and hips aching. His first word was a pained groan. Noah. Elena was there asleep in the chair. She jolted awake, her eyes red but smiling. He's good. He's great. The transplant was perfect. He's in recovery. He's got you inside him now, Seb. 2 months later, the two apartments were no longer separate. The stairwell between them was an open thoroughfare. It was 8 a.m. on a Saturday. The sound was chaotic, deafening, and beautiful. Sebastian, in faded sweatpants and an old t-shirt, was at the stove in Eleanor's kitchen, flipping pancakes. They were, as always, flat. "It's a disgrace," Liam yelled, building a Lego tower on the kitchen table. "No, it's a tradition," Chloe yelled back, bossing her dolls around. Noah, his hair growing back in soft, dark curls, was sitting at the table drawing. His cheeks had color. He was no longer translucent. He was just a boy. Elena came out of her room, rubbing her eyes, a coffee mug in her hand. She wore an old t-shirt of Sebastian's. She stopped, just watching the scene. Sebastian saw her. He put the spatula down, walked over, and wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. They stood there, just watching the beautiful normal chaos. "Look at this," he whispered in her ear. "It's a mess." She smiled, leaning back against his chest. "It's everything," he replied. Noah, hearing them, ran over and held up his drawing. It was their family. A tall man, a woman, 3 small children. But this time, they weren't just holding hands. They were inside a house, a lopsided happy house, and a giant yellow sun was shining directly on it. "It's us," Noah said proudly. "It's perfect, buddy," Sebastian said, his voice thick. Eleanor turned in his arms to face him. The years of pain, of anger, of loneliness, they were finally gone. "I love you, Seb. I love you," he said, and he kissed her. It wasn't a kiss of new, fiery passion. It was a kiss of profound, bone-deep peace. A kiss that had been earned through lies and loss and pain and marrow. "Ew!" Chloe shrieked, shattering the moment. "Stop kissing, Daddy." Liam took the blue Lego. Sebastian laughed, a full, genuine laugh. He released Elena, giving her one last squeeze. "On it, little CEO," he said. He winked at Elena, and he waded back into the chaos, not as a billionaire, not as a boss, but as a father. He was finally home. Sebastian Thorne learned that a true legacy isn't built in glass towers. It's built in messy playrooms. He didn't just find his children, he found his own humanity. But what do you think? Was Elena right to hide the triplets for all those years, given the lies she was told? And can a betrayal as deep as Genevieve's ever truly be forgiven? This story shows that the past is never truly past, and sometimes a second chance is hiding where you least expect it. If this story touched your heart, please help us by hitting that like button. It truly helps our channel. Don't forget to share this video with someone who loves a story of redemption. And the most important part, click subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another dramatic story. We have new ones every week. Thanks for listening.